everyone, I'm Meredith and welcome to my channel. If you're new here, I am so excited that you found me, and if you're returning, I'm so grateful you've decided to come back and watch more. Usually this channel is about all things luxury because I love luxury shoes, handbags, lifestyle and vlogging, but today's video is a little bit different. So I have had gastric sleeve surgery. And I feel it's important to get that information out there. I am not embarrassed by it. I am proud of it. I am proud of the decisions that I made to have it done. And I feel great about it. When I was deciding to get gastric sleeve surgery, I did a lot of research, and I watched a lot of YouTube. I watched a lot of YouTube videos by some fabulous YouTubers in America, but the system there was very different to Australia, and I didn't find a lot that was Australian based and talked about our medical system and how it works. So I did want to do a video where I could talk about that to you guys and maybe give those of you in Australia some more information. Those of you outside of Australia, you will still find this informative because I'll talk about my journey and how it's gone and where I'm at this point, and what I felt was hard, what I felt was easy, and how I feel now. So I had gastric sleeve surgery at the end of November 2021. The date today is, well, it's the beginning of September 2022. So I am 10 months, coming into 10 months out from surgery. And I think now is probably a good time to do a video because I'm starting to be very normal in my eating and how I conduct my life again. So I'm now on the other side of it. So I thought it would be helpful. So I thought I'd start with dispelling some criticisms and myths that come up around gastric sleeve surgery and weight loss surgery in general. So generally speaking, people will have the misconception that you have to be morbidly obese to even consider weight loss surgery. And that's not true, at least in Australia. It's very much not true. So at my heaviest, I weighed 111 kilos. And for those of you who work in pounds, that's 244 pounds. Now, that is absolutely obese on any BMI scale, and I think the BMI scale is crap, and I will circle back to that later. But it is absolutely obese, to the point of being morbidly obese, just touching on a BMI scale. But it is most certainly not so big that if you saw me walking down the street, you'd go, wow, she's huge. I felt huge. I felt incredibly uncomfortable. I genuinely hated myself and how I felt. And I was incredibly depressed about my weight. So for me, it was life-changing in many ways to get this surgery done. But I didn't have to qualify in any way to get the surgery done. In Australia, I did the research. I did all the research. I watched many videos. I looked at the different types of weight loss surgery. There is gastric sleeve, there is a lap band, there is a gastric bypass. But I decided that sleeve was the best option for me as far as I thought, and had the best outcomes that I could find. And I didn't want to do a gastric, I didn't want to do the band because it had failure rates, and I didn't want to do the bypass because I really didn't want to move anything around in my body. I was happy to take away 80% of my stomach, but I was not happy to reroute things. I didn't think that was okay or necessary at this point. So I will put up a picture of me at 111 kilos. It is not one that I am proud of, but who I was. And when I show people this, they generally say, that's not you, that looks nothing like you. And no, it doesn't look anything like me anymore. But I was huge and I hated myself, and I wasn't taking care of myself because you don't take care of things that you don't like. So these are my photos. So today's video is probably going to be a little bit emotional for me, but I'll try and keep it together. So in Australia, once you decide that you would like to get this done, for those of us with private health insurance, and in Australia, we have a fantastic medical system. It is amazing. We as Australians will whinge about it nonetheless sometimes, but we are incredibly lucky to have a Medicare system, a public health system that takes care of you, and you can choose to have private health insurance as well. I do have private health insurance. I have quite high levels of private health insurance. My mother has drilled into me from a very young age, you should always have private health insurance. And I very much agree with that. If you can afford it, it's not cheap, but if you can afford it, then it is absolutely something you should have. So as someone with private health insurance and the ability to tap into a specialist, I had no problems. I tracked down, I basically did a Google search of the best bariatric surgeons in Sydney. So bariatric surgery is weight loss surgery, and came up with some names, and a friend of ours had the same surgery, and I had already pinpointed the doctor, and it turns out it was the same doctor she used, which was really handy. So he's a specialist here in Sydney. And I contacted him. It was the height of COVID. Elective surgery had been suspended. The hospitals were overrun as it was, but I wanted to start to make contact and work out if this was something that I could do. So I made contact with him, and he did a Zoom meeting with me. And he said to me, what do you weigh? How do you feel? Talk to me about what you believe your problems are and how you think this is going to help. Talk to me about different things in my life, different aspects, my history in terms of growing up. Have I always been overweight? And from there he agreed that I was a great candidate for this, and the next time I saw him I was being wheeled into surgery. And it was maybe had COVID not been a thing and had elective surgery been on at that time, I could have had the surgery done within the month. But because of COVID, I had to wait a little while, and then there was a backlog of elective surgery. So, it was a few months for me. But all of that notwithstanding, if it were right now, I could be in having the surgery within the month without any problems. And that's how our medical system for elective surgery works here in Australia, if you've got the money to pay for the private health. As in terms of cost, if you are here in Australia and you'd like to know about the cost, so because I have private health insurance, all my hospital was covered under that. It's part of your private health insurance. You pay for the hospital. So I didn't have to pay for any of that. I didn't have to pay for the theatre fees or any of that. The only out-of-pocket expenses I had were the anaesthetist, which is not uncommon in Australia. You generally, if you go private, pay for the anaesthetist separately. And I think mine was just on $2,000, somewhere around there. And my surgeon, the gap payment. So Medicare did pay a certain amount of money for my surgery, and then I had to pay the gap, and that was $5,000. And so all up, it cost me out of pocket about $7,000, which I think is an absolute bargain for getting my life back. I think it is the best money I have ever spent. I did warn you that today was going to be an emotional video. So my whole stance on life is that I have children and I need to be here for as long as I can be for them. And if I can pay $7,000 and do that and be here longer, then that is worth every single cent. So in Australia, if you have private health insurance, that is an option for you. If you don't have private health insurance and you're going public, that system, I believe there will be a wait list. You will have to qualify in a different way. There are a couple of things to remember with this within Australia. So private health insurance, when you sign up for private health insurance, there will be a wait period for certain things. It could be 12 months, it could be 24 months before you qualify for those things. The surgery without private health insurance, if you're just going to go pay for it and still do it privately, could be tens of thousands of dollars. I think it's upwards around $30,000. There is an option for you to tap into your super for this. So if you have super sitting there and you have enough to cover this, you have the ability to tap into that money in Australia. You can use your super to pay for the bariatric surgery, the gastric sleeve, the bypass, whatever it is. That option is available to you in Australia. The government sees it like, we will allow you to use money that you have been saving for your retirement to do this. So A, you live long enough to see your retirement, and B, it takes pressure off the medical system down the track when you have more medical issues because you're overweight. So that's an option in Australia. The other option in Australia, if you really want to think about it, so I have my private health insurance with a insurer who allows me to claim the rebate as I go. So in Australia, you pay X amount of dollars for your private health insurance every month, or yearly, however you choose to pay it, and then you get a certain amount of money back from the government at tax time for being proactive and having your own extra insurance. If you with certain insurers, you can claim that as you go. So that's something that I do. So I don't wait till tax time to get it all back. I just pay the reduced amount throughout the year. And when I look at what that shakes down to per week, and the wait time could be up to 2 years to qualify, your 2 years of paying your private health insurance to then qualify and only be out of pocket $7,000 is still going to be less than the $30,000 it might cost you if you don't have any private health insurance. So if this is something that's kicking around in your head in Australia and you're considering that, so if you're considering that surgery might be an option for you, consider if it's worth signing up for private health insurance, paying 2 years of premiums, and then having a much reduced cost to have the surgery done, or look at tapping into your super as a way to work around that as well. But there are options here. And I think it's important that if you're considering this surgery for the same reasons that I did, and you were feeling this, if you feel the same way about yourself that I used to, then you should really start to explore your options and see ways that you can work around the money problem. So that's the first myth that I wanted to dispel, that you have to be morbidly obese to qualify for this surgery. In Australia, that is not the case. You certainly have to be overweight, and probably when my doctor was asking me questions about my history and was I overweight as a child and all of that, he would be running in his head an analysis of whether I'm a good candidate or not. So you'd have to be a good candidate, but you most certainly don't have to be crazy overweight. The second myth that I want to dispel is people who say, well, it's just an easy way out, and if you actually committed yourself to exercise and diet, you could lose the weight. Oh my goodness. I talk about judgment on other videos on this channel as things that people who are judging you are applying their logic of their life to your circumstances. And in your life and your circumstances, most assuredly, you can probably just do a little bit of portion control, pick up some extra exercise, and you know what? You'll drop the few kilos you put on. That doesn't work with everyone. Not everybody is built the same. Our genetics are not all the same. It doesn't work that way. It is not that easy for some of us. Stop telling us, just go to the gym and eat less. It doesn't always work. It drives me insane. So I had done previously nutritional keto. Nutritional keto entailed me counting and weighing every single thing that I put in my mouth. Food, drink, whatever. And I had to meet certain macros. So within that, I needed to know what the protein count was, what the calorie count was, what the fat count was, and what the carb count was for everything that I put in my mouth. And I used an app for that. And I would have to pre-plan at least a day in advance because I couldn't do it on the run because I had to meet certain grams of things throughout the day in order to meet my correct macros, which then led to me losing weight. Now, I did lose a lot of weight on that. I lost about the same amount that I've lost now. That system did work for me, but oh my goodness, it was all consuming. So I couldn't go out anywhere. I couldn't do anything on the fly. I had to pre-plan the day at least in advance. I was going to the gym at least every day, sometimes twice a day. I got down to 1,000 calories a day, and admittedly I eat less than that now, but at the time before surgery, that was like a really small amount of food, and it could only be certain amounts of protein and certain amounts of fat and certain amounts of carbohydrates. So I really need to look at everything I ate. So those 1,000 calories were not a joyous 1,000 calories by any stretch of the imagination. And I did that and it worked, but it was not conducive to lifelong dietary requirements. I couldn't do it. I've got 2 small children. I started doing it when my daughter was 1, my son was 3, and I put everything I had into it, but I just couldn't keep it up. It was not a long-term solution. You cannot spend your life counting macros. You just can't. It will, in the end, become too much and you will fail. Now, some people will argue that it teaches you better habits, and if you continue those habits, then yes, it will work. But ultimately, my body is genetically made to store food because it thinks I'm going to go out and plow a field at 3 in the morning and work on the land all day, because that's historically, like, genetically, that's where I come from. I come from working stock. My endocrinologist explained this to me when I had gestational diabetes, and I will always gain weight by simply, I can look at a carbohydrate and put weight on. No worries. Like, oh, that's a nice chip, 5 kilos. So that's just how my body works. So I understand this. I've had great success with Atkins diets in the past because they're low carb. I've done Atkins with a appetite suppressant drug, which was essentially made up of an amphetamine called speed. So I would sleep 2-3 hours a night, and I did that for a year and also lost 40 kilos doing that. But once again, it was not sustainable. I couldn't stay on that drug forever. I was exhausted because I didn't sleep. And it got to the point where I would watch cereal commercials on TV and salivate because I hadn't had a carbohydrate in a year. So I didn't feel that that was sustainable either. I believe the only lifestyle diets that will allow you to maintain them are ones where you don't deny yourself food, where you don't go, I'm not going to eat that, even though I love it, I'm never going to eat it again because it's going to make me put on weight. I don't believe that's sustainable. I believe that's just it's just deprivation. You're depriving yourself of something you love, and eventually you're probably going to resent it and fall off the wagon. So it wasn't working for me. But yes, sure, you can say if I just really committed and spent the rest of my life counting everything I ate and going to the gym once or twice a day, that I would not have needed weight loss surgery. Sure, I agree with that. But I am someone who owns and runs a company. I am 2 people's mother. I have parents of my own. I have a partner. I have a life. At the end of the day, I have a life. And I want to be able to live that life. I want to be able to go out with my friends and have a drink. I want to be able to go out with my friends to a restaurant and eat. I want my life. I do not want to be consumed by my weight for the next 40, 50, 60 years. Who knows how long I'll live? I'm 41 now. If I live to be 90, do I want to spend the next 40 years counting everything that goes into my mouth? And the answer is no, I don't. So yes, it is very easy to say, but Meredith, if you just did this, you didn't have to have the surgery. Yeah, sure. But is that life? Is that living? Or is that just existing to try and meet a weight outcome? And for me, it wasn't what I wanted to do. So that's how I got to gastric sleeve surgery. So like I have said, I did all the research. I was wheeled into hospital and met my surgeon for the first time there. So let's talk a little bit about my experience of the actual surgery itself and the aftermaths of that. So 2 weeks prior to having actual gastric sleeve surgery, you start a very low calorie diet. And for me, this was the hardest part of my whole journey. So you're coming out of eating all this crap for years, of your body experiencing lots of calories every day, and suddenly you go, bam, 2 weeks before this surgery, I'm going to hit a low calorie diet with no preparation, and my body is going to scream at me. So for me here in Australia, I used an OptiFast system. It's what my surgeon told me to use, and I would drink shakes and I'd eat their bars, and I was told how many of those I could have a day. You could also supplement it with some vegetables. I'm not a big vegetable eater at the best of times. I just lived on the OptiFast, and that was a tough 2 weeks. Your body is, you're not having coffee, you're off sugar, you're off carbohydrates. Your body is screaming at you in every way and shape and form it can, because it is used to having all of these things and you've suddenly deprived it of it. And I've got to say the coffee was probably hardest for me. You could drink black coffee, but that was it. And I did have a little bit, but coming off it all at the same time, the caffeine, the sugar, the carbohydrates and everything, that was rough. And I'm pretty sure it was rough on everybody around me as well. But I persevered. My goal was to get to surgery, and if that's what it took to get to surgery, then I was going to do it. I was going to suck it up and deal with it and be a horrible, horrible person to be around for 2 weeks, but I was getting a surgery. I was going to change my life. So you do that for 2 weeks. Then you go in and you have surgery. And while that's all happening, you're having blood tests as well. I was pre-diabetic. My sugar was really high. None of these things surprised me. I had gestational diabetes with both my children from very early on. I was on insulin from 7 weeks with my son, 11 weeks with my daughter. I had massive fertility issues, and we had worked out that was my sugars that was causing me to continue to miscarry the babies I was carrying. And so when I fell pregnant with my son, they had me on insulin straight away. It's the only reason I could carry to term my children, was because I followed the gestational diabetes diets to the letter with both of my children. And on a separate note, I lost 16 kilos while I was pregnant with my son. So from the day I fell pregnant to the day I gave birth, I was 16 kilos lighter with my son. And with my daughter, I think it was about 14 kilos. I lost a little bit less with her. So the day I fell pregnant, I was one weight. The day I gave birth, I was 14 kilos lighter. Like before I had the children, like not after I had the kids, before I had the children while I was still pregnant. So that's what, once again, that just reinforces that my body reacts differently with carbohydrates. It really drills down into carbohydrates, because people think diabetes is about sugar. Actually, it's about carbohydrates, because unused carbohydrates for energy become sugar in your bloodstream, and that's your problem. Fun fact there for you. So I had blood tests while this was all going on. I was pre-diabetic again. We knew this. I went to the hospital in the morning to have the surgery, or I think I might have gone about lunchtime. Once again, tough day, because you're not eating. And your body's already in like free fall, because you've come off 2 weeks of a low calorie diet, and you're still craving all of this food. So my anaesthetist was fantastic. He gave me Valium in the waiting bay, which I'd never had Valium before. That was awesome. And then they give you and then he gave me gas before he put the cannula in, because I hate cannulas. And then I was knocked out. So in terms of anaesthetist, that's the best anaesthetist experience I've ever had, and I've had a few. And then the surgery is done. It's over fairly quickly. And you wake up in you probably wake up in post-op, but I never remember post-op. I always remember when I get to the room. And I had a little bit of discomfort. So when they do the surgery, it's keyhole surgery. So I think I've got 5 scars all up, and some of those are for lights. So they put lights inside you, and some of them are for the actual tools themselves that they're using. And they blow your stomach cavity up with gas so that they can see everything. So you back up, and you still have some of that gas kicking around in your system, and that can be really uncomfortable. Lots of people experience extreme discomfort from that. I did have discomfort, but mine was managed by the little button they give you for pain relief. Also awesome, the fentanyl drip, love that. And I was fine between that and Panadol, and I came off that within probably like 8 hours or something. So I was fine with it. But I do know other people who have experienced serious pain after that, because it's such discomfort from all that gas in you. So I came back to the room. I was still very out of it. I was with it enough to go, I've got to text my family, let them know I'm okay. It was really late at night. I was the last surgery of the day. I don't think I got back to my room until almost midnight. And then I was with it enough to say, I've got to text them. I text them. And then I think I came around about 2 a.m. So I really woke up around 2 a.m. The nurse came in, they get you up. There is no sitting around. I was up. So they get you up, you go to the bathroom, and you start to move around. There is no downtime with this. Your recovery time for this surgery is actually really, really quick. So the surgery itself removes 80% of your stomach, and your stomach becomes much more sausage-like rather than like round. So they remove 80% of your stomach and then they sleeve it. So that keeps it tight. So you lose the part of your stomach that also houses all the hormones that tell you that you're hungry, which is fantastic. So that's basically what the surgery is. They cut off 80% of your stomach and they sleeve what's left. But everything stays exactly as it is. It doesn't get rerouted. So the next morning when I got up, they had me up, and then you start liquids. Your goal to get out of hospital is 1 liter of liquids in a day. And that doesn't sound like a lot, but it really is when you're coming out of this surgery. It is so much. So you are not on solids for quite a while. You are on liquids, and your goal to get out of hospital is to be able to keep a liter of liquids in your system, because they need to make sure you're not going to be dehydrated. And that was my goal. That was my outcome. That was how I was getting home. You know what? I was going to meet it, because I'm very good at meeting goals. So you get sent off to a class on that day as well. Here in Australia, they do a class, a nutrition class. They talk to you about what you should be looking at, how the next few weeks are going to work for you, and give you some information. And they keep bringing you liquid diet. So there's like protein, water, soups, clear liquids, and I just worked towards my liter a day. I wanted to come home. I didn't want to be in hospital for more than 2 nights. And I just drilled down and went, right, I've got to get through this. And I did it. I was home. I did 2 nights in the hospital and I came home the next day. And I was fine. I was still uncomfortable. You've had your stomach, part of your stomach removed. You've got incision wounds. It's not comfortable. Like, this is major surgery. But I was up and moving, and I couldn't pick my kids up, obviously, but I was helping out around the house. I was unstacking dishwashers still. Like, I was doing stuff. I was back to work within the week, but I didn't have the luxury of not working, really. I own the company. I need to be there. I don't do well sitting around at home. I don't have holidays or sick leave like most other people do when you work for someone else. So I was straight back to work. And I was fine because I was sitting at a desk, so it wasn't a problem. Manual labor would have been an issue. So you do probably around a week on a liquid diet, like just clear liquids, nothing in them. And then you transition to soft foods for about 2 weeks after that. And I lived on Cruskets with cream cheese and salmon, like tin salmon. And even now, as I'm saying it, my mouth is starting to water because I really enjoyed that. So I lived on those when I got to the soft food phase. It's a real strange time. You're working out what you can and can't eat, what your stomach's all right with. And it's very much all in your head at that point. Your body is doing what it should be doing. It's all mental. So in your head, you're looking at normal food going, oh, that looks good. And your stomach is going, no, no, we're not doing that. So you've really got to listen to your stomach and not your brain, because your brain is giving you, however old you are, years of experience with food. Listen to your stomach. When it's going, no, you go, no, I'm not eating that, no chance. So you've really got to be in tune with your body at that point, not your brain. And you're dropping weight fairly quickly through the first part of this process, like 1 kilo a week at least, sometimes 2-3 kilos a week. And once again, that's a real mental thing, because you are so used to stepping on the scales and having to work so hard to get them to move and put all your effort into it, and then suddenly it's dropping and you're really not thinking about it, because you don't think about it. In those early stages, you've got to think about what you're eating, because you need to meet the requirements of the diet that you're at that point. But overall, you're really not putting that much effort into it and you're dropping weight, which for someone who struggles with their weight their whole life and is so depressed by it and just in a horrible mental state, to see that happen, your brain cannot comprehend it. You're incapable of looking at that and going, how is that happening? Like, you just can't. So that's the first few weeks after the surgery. You are all about the diet. Where am I at diet? I'm at liquids, I'm at soft foods, I'm at chunks, I'm now eating full food. And that's a few months down the track. But your portion sizes are tiny, teeny tiny. So, that crusket with cream cheese and salmon on it, I couldn't get through that to start with. And even now, that on its own would fill me quite happily. I could do that and nothing else, and I would be full. One crusket, a little bit of cream cheese on it, and a tin of tuna, a tin of salmon, done. I'm full. And that's about the portion sizes that you're working towards. So now here we are. I'm 10 months down the track. So let me give you an understanding of where I am now. So 111 kilos is where we started. 10 months down the track, I currently weigh 69 kilos. So for those of you playing along in a different country, I went from 244 pounds to 152 pounds. So I've lost 92 pounds. So help me God, I'm losing 8 more, because I'm going to say I lost 100 pounds, even though we don't work in pounds here in Australia. So I'm currently at 69 kilos. My surgeon would like to see me lose another 10 kilos, which puts me just into the 50s. I have never weighed anything less than 67 kilos in my entire adult life. Never. So for me, I have no point of reference of what that's going to look like. At the very least, I would like to lose another 5 kilos, because on a BMI scale, I am still considered overweight. The BMI scale is bullshit. Excuse my language, but it is. I hate the BMI scale. The BMI scale is the body mass index scale, and is based on your height and your weight, and based on those things alone, it spits out whether you're obese, overweight, in a healthy weight range, or underweight. It takes into consideration no variables. It's ridiculous. It drove me nuts when I was trying to conceive and I geared up for IVF. I didn't qualify. I had to meet a certain BMI in order to qualify for IVF, which I thought was ridiculous because it didn't take into consideration any variables. If you are, say, a bodybuilder or someone who does a lot of weight training, you will weigh more simply because muscle weighs more than fat. So on a BMI scale, you could be considered obese, yet you are incredibly fit. That is where the BMI scale is ridiculous and falls down. But nonetheless, surgeons like it, doctors like it. My surgeon tells me that on a BMI scale, I'm still considered overweight. He would like to see me into a healthy weight range. He'd like to see me lose 10 kilos. I'm happy if I lose another 5. But that's where we sit at the moment. So I'm still dropping weight, but I will tell you now that at 10 months, I am just starting to have bad habits creep in, and I'm very much aware of it. So I still can't eat very much. Like, I still can't get through a full meal. I still eat, not huge portions. I just can't. They're teeny tiny little portions. I used to love to go out for fine dining and do like a 13-course meal over many hours. Oh my goodness, no. These days, if we go somewhere and there's an entree, a main, and a dessert, I'm lucky if I get through one of those. I might do, if I really want a dessert, I know that I'm not going to finish it anyway, I might do part of an entree and part of a dessert, or I'll just do part of a main meal, but I don't finish anything. I don't finish everything ever. I just don't. But I can see that it is very easy to fall into bad habits where snacks are concerned. So there are certain things called slider foods, which go down and don't sit in your stomach the same way. So chips, crackers, you know, things that you shouldn't be eating will generally fall into those categories. And I'm a snacker if I'm sitting at home. I'm terrible for it. Even at work, if someone brings in cupcakes or donuts or whatever, I'm there. I'm a snacker, and that's the worst habit that I have. So I can see that that can become a problem quickly if you just snack a lot with the wrong types of food. It would be very easy to fall back into a pattern of not losing any more weight or even gaining some of that weight back. So I can see that's going to be a problem. I can also tell you at 10 months, I can eat more than I used to. So I still don't finish a meal, but I can certainly get more in now than I did in the beginning. In the beginning, when I would eat too much, well, even now, if I eat too much, if I push it too far, it will make me sick, like physically sick. I will vomit. And in the beginning, you learn that the hard way. You've really got to stop and give yourself time when you're eating to see if that's too much. Don't shove it all in, because it's just going to come back up again. And vomiting with 80% of your stomach gone is not a nice experience. So yeah, I can certainly eat more now than I used to, but even now, if I push it too far, it's going to make me sick. Carbonated drinks were a massive loss for me. I lived on Diet Coke. I love Diet Coke. I still love Diet Coke. But for the first 6 months, there are no carbonated drinks. And you don't drink juice because it's too high in sugar. So when you go out with friends, it's really quite hard to find a drink to have that's not water. I struggled with water. I still struggle with water now even. It sits very heavy in my stomach. So I drink a lot of diet cordial because it just gives a slightly different texture, and it seems to sit differently in my stomach. So I existed on diet cordial, and I still do now. Water is very heavy for me. So if I'm out at a restaurant early on, I can't have anything carbonated, I can't have any juices, and water sits heavy, I have an issue. It was really hard through that period. I can now go out, I can drink a little bit of alcohol. I can have a little bit of carbonated drinks, so I can get a Diet Coke now. But honestly, if the glass is like this, I have this much out of the top, and that's about it for me. Alcohol will sit differently in your stomach too, and they heavily educate you on this, that you cannot drink what you used to drink. So your body will now metabolize alcohol differently. You cannot drive. Do not drive. So previous to this, in Australia, our alcohol laws are very set. You have to meet, if you get pulled over and you get breathalyzed, there's a standard that you need to meet. And generally speaking, for women, you can have 1 standard drink per hour and still be under the limit. For men, they can have 2 standard drinks in the first hour and a standard drink every hour after that and be under the limit. You can't do that with gastric sleeve. If I have half a glass of wine, I'm going to be over the limit. My body does not metabolize alcohol in the same way it used to. So you've got to be really careful with that. If you're someone who really loves a drink, then get yourself an Uber account, because you can't drive anymore. It's that simple. So they're things to be aware of as you come out the other side of this surgery. This surgery is not a fix-all. It doesn't fix all your problems. It's a tool. It gives you a tool to work on what your understanding of food is and how much food your body needs. You can absolutely, after 18 months or 2 years of having the sleeve, push your sleeve to a point where you can pack weight back on. Probably not to the same extent as previously, but you can absolutely push it by eating the wrong foods and getting in the wrong calories. It's easy to do. You have to use this time when you have the surgery to learn new habits and understand your body does not need the amount of food you always thought it did. It's that simple. I started after the surgery, it was a push for me to get 400 calories in. I then pushed out to 600 calories. These days, I'll eat somewhere between 800 calories and 1,000 calories a day. But they should predominantly be made up of proteins and fresh fruits and vegetables, and then carbohydrates and all the other crap that you eat. So if I eat protein, if I eat like a steak now, I can't get through a whole steak. If I put that in my body is full, it has the nutrition it needs, and I have not eaten so much that I'm going to put on weight. I'm still losing weight. It's about making good decisions. You need to use this tool that you take if you choose to have this surgery and learn new ways to eat and really reprogram your brain. Your brain that has spent its whole life battling its weight and wanting things that it shouldn't have. So you really need to reprogram during this time. Use the tool you're given and learn new strategies. So would I have the surgery again? Yep. All day and night. Absolutely. I have my life back. I am a different person. I am not this person anymore. This is not me. This is me. I embrace life. I like how I look. I am back to taking care of myself because I like who I am. I am much more social. I'm happy to see people. I don't hide behind a sea of black clothes anymore. I have energy. I play with my children. I get lots of things done in my day. I don't go to bed exhausted for absolutely no reason. Things don't hurt that used to. And I'm just a better person for it. I like who I am like this. And that's not a slight on anyone who is overweight who loves themselves. If you love yourself at any weight, whether society tells you you're overweight or not, if you love yourself, if you love who you are, then you're lucky. And I think you don't need this surgery. That's not what this is about. Unless it's for a medical reason, the doctor's saying to you, you need to have this surgery. Your health is at risk. If you are overweight or obese on a BMI scale, but you love who you are and you don't have any health concerns whatsoever, screw society. Don't care what other people think. It's not about what other people think. It's about how you feel in yourself. And if you are happy, that is all that matters. If you aren't happy, if you are depressed, if you don't like yourself, if you struggle on a daily basis with your weight, if it takes up real estate in your head that could be better used doing something else, if it's always there, if it's always on your mind, if it depresses you, if you look in the mirror and hate what you see, this surgery is an option. This surgery has changed my life. This surgery is something that I am incredibly grateful for. And I would do it again in a heartbeat. If you are looking at having this surgery and you want to ask questions, please make contact with me. Ask me the questions in the comments down below. Come and find me over on Instagram. I will put up my handle for you down below. Come and find me, DM me. I will happily answer all your questions. If you've got 700 questions, I will sit and answer them as best as I can from my knowledge, knowing that I live in Australia and I use the Australian medical system. I am happy to give you as much information as I can. I feel it's so important. If this is something you're looking at, I am more than happy to help you. If you've liked today's video, please give it a thumbs up down below. And if you like luxury things, feel free to subscribe. I understand not everyone's going to be here for that reason, but if you want, I'm here. I hope that this has been informative for you. I hope that it's given you information. And I also hope wherever you are in the world today, you're having a fabulous day. Thanks, guys. Bye.